My name is Kai. I'm from Germany, and currently I'm implementing FHIR functionality within the SAP ISH system. I don't know if anyone knows it outside Germany. And and I am planning to use notification to get system in sync from the hospital information system and the system for cardiologic things and so on. And they're working in parallel for months and years. And losing notifications would lead into losing sync and losing information. And currently we are discussing about patient merges. And if I miss a patient merge, I'm always polling for the old patient, and I'm not getting any information because they are all shifted to the new patient. And that could lead to severe mistreatments for the patient. So this is a very core question for us to have a reliable messaging and notification.
Yes. First, thank you for the question. It's one that comes up frequently. I will say, for context, when I started defining this, that was one of the first things I tried to push was a guaranteed delivery mechanism. And I was told that is outside of the scope of FHIR, and we can't actually put that in a core spec because we can't require systems to do that. So what we did was a couple of things. One is we added the ability to define custom channels. So you say you do have a reliable message channel, maybe it's a message queue, whatever that is. We have a way that you specify that, you provide the information for that, and we can even interoperate. So again, if you have your message queue of choice, MSMQ, Kafka, whatever it happens to be, you can define that channel and then have reliable communications sent that way. Also, in order to make sure that we approach the best reliability as we can without it, we've added a lot of features to detect when something's wrong and recover. So in the case of saying, for instance, the HTTP REST messages, because you say you're just doing REST posts, by default, you have to use an incrementing event number. And we got all the cloud vendors to agree. All of them said they hated it, but all of them said they were willing to do it because it is that important to be able to reliably know that something happened. We also included things like heartbeat messages. So as a receiver, you can say, hey, I haven't heard anything in a day, and you're supposed to send me at least a heartbeat every day so I can go and figure out that something's wrong. And conversely, you can say I got messages 1, 2, 3, and 5. Obviously, I missed 4. I can go back and find out what happened and pick up that missing event. So we said both. If you define reliable messaging, you can use that. And if you use best effort, here are mechanisms where you can at least detect that something's wrong and recover from those errors.
Okay, so the people I'm discussing this topic in Germany, they say if I'm defining a custom channel, I'm out of the spec, I'm no more interoperable, and I'm out of scope. So they say, I can't use it.
No, yeah, and what a lot of that comes back to is the things in the core spec are supposed to be 80%. So they're supposed to cover 80% of all the use cases. So we can't say, and that was part of the issue when we talked about reliable deliveries. We say message queue. Okay, which message queue? Are you talking about the one from Microsoft, the one from Apache, the one, your custom one? There isn't one single method we can use to do it. So we said, here are examples, here are the channel types that we think are common enough that everyone should be able to refer to them. And then everything else can be defined externally. One good example is you can use an IG, especially if you can get national level IGs and things like that to define the channel. All it is a code system and code. And obviously agreement on what parameters are necessary, whether those are additional values that are in the subscription or endpoints, whatever those look like. So it's definitely there. We specifically added it, and that's why it's in R5 and it's via extensions in the R4 backport IG, because that was identified as a requirement to make this production friendly.
Okay, so it's already part of the backport IG because someone
Yes.
said that it's not part, and it's
It
okay.
is part of the backport IG. It is there. Yes.
And for the incremental ID of the event, if I have a large number of events occurring, and they are all processed in parallel, if I will send the notifications, I'm losing parallel processing because I need one single process to deliver this unique event ID that is incremental. So this is one really great disadvantage in my opinion.
Yes, and if you're using reliable messaging, you are allowed to remove that. So we specifically said that if you're using reliable messaging, you just need an identifier, a unique identifier. But if you're not using reliable messaging, if you're using best effort messaging, that's the compromise, to say you have to at some point make those atomic so that we can figure out what's happening.
But best effort messaging is commonly used for parallel processing, for getting speed, and now
it is in this case we're using best effort because that's what we have standards for. When we talk about sending an HTTP notification, it might be relayed through a bunch of servers and different things like that. Yeah, I mean, again, you can make the argument if you define a channel that says you don't need to use it, you don't need to use it. There's we tried to leave those doors open as much as possible, but we also want to make sure, like you're saying, missing messages is very bad in a medical context. And so if we can't guarantee reliable delivery, we have to have other mechanisms that clients can at least know I'm missing something and go back and fix it. And in all of our talks, that's why all the cloud vendors said the same thing. We hate this, but we understand, and none of us have a better mechanism. So we'll encourage people to use our internally defined queuing system instead, and then you don't have to deal with that. But otherwise, again, if you do have another solution, please let us know. We're always happy to add things.
Okay.
We have a dozen of queues, but why not just enumerate them under the spec so people will stop?
Yes.
So I was, to be honest, I was always thinking that the introduction of topic-based subscription was that the topic is exactly queue behind. Yes. So that I was thinking that implementers were forced FHIR introduce topics because you may think the topic as a like Kafka or Google pops up, something like this, which is working. So can we think that like if I define it like topic, I will have a Kafka queue or some other pops up system getting these messages, and then I can work through this specific protocol with it?
You would need a subscription to do that, just because we made the topics canonical. So you can say that you have, and this is where we start getting into CRMI land of saying, if we have a subscription, which is not a canonical resource, but in this case, we want a canonical one because we're saying you're always using the same setup of Kafka queue or whatever it is. You could define that in a profile, or you could define that as a specific subscription that you inherit from or something like that. I'd probably prefer to see that as a profile myself, just because there's more tooling support for it. That you say, yes, you have to use, Nikolai's Kafka queue and post all of your messages to it. Again,
I still have to use like a pair, like defining topics and then subscribe to everything from this topic. Yeah, using Kafka.
But why not using a normal REST endpoint? If I'm getting an operation outcome, or if I'm not getting a 2XX return code, it's not received by the party. So I don't need any external tools. It's just relying on the HTTP return code.
You mean HTTP code for what? For topic definition or for getting notification?
No, for delivering the notification.
Yeah, because that's what you are talking about. Yes, if you look into the Kafka protocol, it's very sophisticated, let's say. So you are not missing stuff. There's an internal sequence number and all this stuff. And that's the problem, that the different implementation have different protocols inside, and these protocols efficient, and they provide you guarantees not losing messages, and it is not HTTP. So if you look at the Kafka protocol, Kafka client protocol, it is not HTTP. Yes.
Yep.
So you can play this game like sending subscription, for Kafka, but you will just use Kafka client to connect to the Kafka queue and start listening for the events.
Yeah, regarding the reliability of HTTP, we spent a lot of time on it pretty early on, and a lot of times, generally, the HTTP server is disconnected from the client that's actually receiving things. And so even though you said it was successfully posted, there's no guarantee that the client actually got it. And that's where things like Kafka come in. That's, yes, once you've given it to Kafka, that's it. Yeah, as far as you're concerned, it's gone, and someone can read it, whether they read it today or tomorrow. But you can picture one of the common use cases was you post via REST, and that's translated into a push notification for a cell phone. Maybe that process worked, maybe it failed, maybe the phone was in service, maybe it was off. We have no idea whether they've received it or not, and at some point it can time out. It's unreliable. It's just best effort. Mm-hmm. So we couldn't rely on HTTP to say we know that the client actually got it.
Mm-hmm. And we had a Vasil with a hand. Vasil, can you ask a question?
I was going to respond to Kai's question on some of the details, but Gino already did that, so that's why I pulled my hand down.
Mm-hmm. And you're really from Epic, Vasil. So how is subscription implementation in Epic? What should we expect in the near future?
I don't know about the near future. There will be an implementation at some point. It will have sequential numbers. That's probably most likely.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to support channels like Kafka or PubSubs, other PubSub queues?
No, we won't support any common specific queuing products. It's still early to completely rule them out, but at least the first effort will be best effort and sequence numbers, and if we miss, we'll have to ask.
That's maybe, Gina, the reason to like enumerate all use specification. Otherwise, guys, we don't want to support it. Yeah.
Well, and that's why we said there's a big space for protocol relays, for instance. We want everyone at minimum to support REST because that's one that everyone can support. If you say, I have a server that only supports REST, but I need to get it into a message queue, that's a fairly trivial piece of software that will receive the REST messages and post them into the queue and can take care of consolidating the best effort from the FHIR server and making sure there's no missed events and all those things. So we said that's probably at least the initial way. And if we think there's enough momentum behind any individual one, we can add it to the list, for FHIR R6 or R6B or.
Okay. Okay, guys, we have time for one more question. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not sure. This is more like a statement than a question, but to have guaranteed delivery, it relies on acknowledgements, because in the case like Gino mentioned with the network partition, you never know whether the receiver received it unless they tell you they received it. And they shouldn't tell you they receive it until they've persisted it durably so that they know they won't forget it. So HTTP in that case is perfectly fine as long as the subscription server will resend the message if it fails to get a 200 OK on the post. So to me, this question of reliability really resides within the FHIR subscription server itself and the implementation of that.
Yeah, what we found in practice was that wasn't true. That just because someone gave you a 200 doesn't mean the client ever actually got the notification. And in particular, that's where we were talking about things like, especially cell phones. I think it's pretty unrealistic to say that any FHIR server is going to implement push notifications for each vendor of cell phone that they want to support, for the apps, the smart apps that patients want to use. And
Sure.
so those,
I mean,
we
if
need
the,
some way to bridge that gap.
Yeah, but I mean, the receiver can fail to fulfill their responsibility, but if the server doesn't fulfill its responsibility, then all bets are off.
Yes, yes, and that's why there's the expectations that if you're sending via post and it fails, then you have a way of logging that, and there's an error detection mechanism and all those different things so that you can see. And that's where, again, the heartbeat mechanism comes back in to say if you're supposed to be receiving a message every hour or every day or things like that, and you're not receiving them, again, to go back and check to see that it's something's in error instead of just nothing happened.
And they,
And why just FHIR server can't do a attempt to resend the message again if it doesn't receive 200? Because right now it's just one try, best effort, and if no error, and that's all.
Nope, we left that to server. We left that to the server. Specifically, it says the server is allowed to retry and everything else. It's that at some point, either it went through or it didn't. And whether that's after one attempt, after 10 attempts, after an hour, we left that up to an implementer.
and it's a trap. It's a trap, really. When you start playing this game, like resending stuff, and even worse, because some logic is depend on the order of messages. And then things getting worse even, because even with the HTTP, let's say you have 1 millisecond between two events, so they can come to the to the client in a different order, and there is no guarantee they will not come. Yeah, maybe message ID, like message sequence number, will help a little bit. Yes, but after that, things getting more and more messy, and we have a cup theorem. Yes, at the end. So.